Likido Martial Art. Mental Conditioning Day 1. Duration, 1 day. General Fundamentals Info. In this segment we will talk about the most fundamental and basic knowledge one must know about fighting, based on my own knowledge and understanding. The very first thing that I want to talk about is speed. Why is it the very first physical aspect that we trained on the physical conditioning? And does that mean it is the most important physical aspect one need in fighting? The answer is that because in actual fighting he who is the fastest to deliver the first attack has the advantage to finish off the fight first and gain victory, especially when speed is combined with precision, aka knowledge. Those two are a deadly duo. Speed plus precision equals deadly attack. You see in fight scenes shown in movies and TV do fighters fought for minutes to even an hour, even on an actual ring sport fights like boxing, MMA, karate competition, etc. Not to mention that they often or almost all of the time wear protective gear that renders their attacks and the attacks they received less powerful and damaging in comparison to the actual reality without so. For in reality, he who first land the first attack had the upper hand of finishing the fight first and defeating her opponent, or if not, at least give enough damage to the opponent that will make the opponent incapable of fighting, while thus increasing your odds of winning that fight. In essence, in Likido martial art we don't aim for round 1, round 2, rounds 3 and so forth. But rather our aim is to be the first one to deliver the first attack and finish off the enemy right at that very moment. Sounds boring, right? But that's the reality. We're talking about reality and survival here, and there's no fun or aesthetic applied when it is survival that we're talking about. But speed alone isn't enough without precision knowledge, which is the one we're about to condition in this mental conditioning. Your speed could just lead to wasted energy, like a gun shooting to no known target. A wasted effort that doesn't lead to any possible sure outcome. So your task in an actual kill or be killed situation is to be the one to land the first attack using your speed with precision knowledge to finish off the fight right at that moment. But what if your opponent managed to avoid, block, or still stand even after getting hit by your first attack? Then of course pretty much surely your opponent will try to make a response attack to you. This is where the second physical aspect conditioning, which is the reflex on the physical conditioning we previously practiced, come into play, where you'll use the speed of your response to stimulus, aka your reflex, to avoid that opponent's response attack. But let's say your opponent is the first one to actually attack and not you. Your reflex is still the one you'll be using to avoid that, or if no other option, block. Where the third physical aspect, which is flexibility, will come to play too. As I said before, even if one has the fast reflex, that one might still struggle to avoid an incoming attack if that person's body isn't that flexible to bend and stretch. Flexibility also helps not just in avoiding attacks, but also on us giving our own attacks, giving us more reach, this giving us more room and space to move to. And let's say you manage to avoid or block it, your opponent's attack, then here you have the opportunity again to attack back. But at this time you'll have less focused attention. An adrenaline rush, aka the primal mode of survival, already kicks in, where one is often ran by their emotions and instincts to survive already, and not logic and thinking anymore, thus making your brain like incapable of thinking. Thus could also be the reason why many, if not majority, of martial arts that looks cool on the practice play starts to looks foolish and ineffective in an actual street or survival fight where one life is at stake, because they aren't trained to function in such disturbed inner equilibrium situation, wherein here instead of precision and knowledge you'll rely more onto your raw strength and power, which will dictate the amount of damage your opponent will receive. The fourth physical aspect we trained on the physical conditioning. And if still your opponent managed to still stand, could be because they have high endurance, which is durability plus stamina. then you'll need to rely hereto on your own endurance, the fifth and the last physical aspect we trained on, the physical conditioning. To last long in your fight with them, where most likely the one who has the highest level of endurance would be the last person standing between you and your opponent, unless there's other factors that comes into play, like your opponent being able to get a knife from a table and stab you, on which luck might come into play too. But still, if luck is to be considered, it must be the last option. And that's the very reason why we are learning this martial art, so that we can put our own fate on our own hands as much as possible without relying into luck or chance. Note: the description I gave above is the very basic premise of a simple, and I think the most common way of how a fight might normally occur between two persons. Of course, there could be many variations to it, like one versus many, but still I think it is the most simple and common example I can use, where are the other variations could be based or founded upon from. And to answer the question, if speed is the most important physical aspect out of all the five we've trained on the physical aspect, well, it depends. At the beginning stage of the fight, it is since the first who attack has the opportunity of finishing it first, which is the main goal here in Likido martial art, not to give the opponent any chance to attack back anymore by finishing the fight as soon as it begin by our first attack. Because the longer we keep the fight going, we are also opening a greater chance for our opponent to actually be the one to win and defeat us. But on the latter part, strength and endurance will also come to play, and even reflex and flexibility. So the short answer is no, speed is not the most important, but is as important as all the other for physical aspects, and must be trained and given the enough attention, just like on the speed itself. Shorter and simpler description. The fight begins between you and your opponent. Your primary goal is to be the first one to land the first attack using your speed with precision knowledge on your opponent's vital body parts to defeat them, or at least give massive damage to them, so that they won't be able to fight in their full condition anymore. But if they manage to give the first attack, you will use your reflex and flexibility to avoid it, and if cannot, then at least block. But then if you are the first one who delivers the first attack and your opponent managed to still stand, then the same thing applies, where you'll also be needing your reflex and flexibility to move and stretch your body as much as you can to avoid, block, and even on giving your own attacks, on which after you successfully avoid or block your opponent's attack, this time you'll need to attack back, relying more on your brute strength to deliver as much damage to your opponent as possible, since in this situation you aren't as focused as on the beginning because of fight or flight mode. Also because your opponent is pretty much on a higher guard now than before, knowing you'll deliver a possible next attack, on which after you do so, and your opponent still managed to stand and continue fighting, you'll need to use now your endurance, durability plus stamina to last as long as possible till you defeat your opponent, while also considering all the other factors not mentioned in here, like environmental changes, sudden acquisition of weapons, accidental fatal damage to you or your opponent, etc. Simplified sequence: 1. Speed with precision. 2. Reflex and flexibility. 3. Brute strength for longevity through endurance. 5. Consideration of other factors. Study and understand this through contemplation and imagining, simulating of an actual fight, be it inside your mind visualization, or in reality physical simulation, with someone like a friend, artificial physical opponent, on how this concept works. Important notice: starting today, you'll do a minimum 20 minutes of physical movements every day that focuses on the 5 physical aspects, which is the speed, reflex, flexibility, strength, and endurance, with 4 minutes each minimum for each physical aspects. You'll do these daily every day, checking this every night once your day ends if you have done 4 minutes each for all the 5 physical aspects of movements today. If not, then you must do it before you sleep. Written by Earth Robert. This video is made possible by the sponsor below, Quincy Wilson.